kiddos, so here we are, and I'm finally making the first video as promised, so you can kind of get an idea how to maneuver around the kitchen. And we thought we'd start with essentials that you should probably have in your kitchen if you're going to cook at all. So let's start with fats. Olive oil. It's my most essential ingredient, and it's something that I couldn't live without in the kitchen. Olive oil. You don't have to get the best extra virgin olive oil, but get a good pure olive oil. Don't get that blended stuff. Get yourself some olive oil. I also have another type of oil on hand all the time for frying and stuff, like canola. This is canola, or corn oil, vegetable oil, peanut oil, whatever, just for kind of frying things up, and sometimes in baking, but we're not going to learn how to bake here because I can't bake. It's not necessary. Olive oil is more important than this oil. Vinegar. Get some apple cider vinegar in your lives. It's very good for you. You can use it for anything that requires vinegar. Really, even if it just says white vinegar, you can always use apple cider vinegar. And you know, I don't use a lot of jarred salad dressings, so vinegar is important. I put soy sauce in the list because, especially in vegetarian cooking, it adds like a depth of umami, which is like an earthy, meaty kind of flavor, which I know may not be vegetarians' favorite taste, but it's a good flavor to add, and it's good to have around. And you can save those little packets from your takeout. If you don't use them, just put them in the cabinet. You'll have it. Over here, salt and pepper. I don't recommend regular iodized salt. I recommend this kosher salt because it's more versatile, I think, in recipes. I use the pink Himalayan, but any kind of, you know, I recommend the kosher salt and pepper. It can be pre-ground. It can be the kind you ground yourself. Garlic powder. Not garlic salt, garlic powder. I couldn't live without this in my kitchen. And the reason is because sometimes I make rubs for barbecue, or sometimes you just want to sprinkle a little extra something on a potato going into the oven or something. Garlic powder is really good, especially if you don't happen to have real garlic on hand. So garlic powder and one dried spice. My go-to would be oregano, because I like it, but you can just one dried spice that you like. Basil, oregano, thyme, whatever it is. Buy it and have it in your cabinet. And butter, folks. Buy a thing of butter. Put it in your freezer. It'll store there for a very long time, and sometimes you just need a little bit of butter to add depth to a recipe or something. Butter's really a good fat to have too. Fresh garlic, as I mentioned, and fresh onions. These both are stored outside of the refrigerator. They may sprout. They can still be used if they sprout, but that just means you're not cooking enough. So, fresh garlic and an onion. In the fridge, I always have some type of mustard on hand. It could be any kind of mustard that you like, but sometimes just a shot of mustard. This is Dijon because a lot of recipes call for Dijon. But you could interchange them, whatever your favorite mustard is. Mustard, I always have on hand. Ketchup, because sometimes you just need a shot of ketchup in something. Or a lot of people love ketchup, so mustard and ketchup, and mayonnaise. I know a lot of you don't like mayonnaise, but eggs are really expensive right now, and you can actually use mayonnaise in place of the eggs in a lot of things, and you know, you'll learn about that. But if you hate mayonnaise, just get the little one. Have it in your fridge. And then in our staples cabinet, I always have a can of beans. These are black beans, but I recommend just have a can of some type of white bean on hand at all times, because having a can of beans on, you can whip up a whole entire meal with a can of beans and some garlic and oil, and you'd be amazed. a can of tomatoes. Get yourself at least 1 can of diced tomatoes. They can be fire roasted, they can be regular. They're a great thing to have on hand. And again, these are staples that you can just come up with a recipe and you can make something if you're hungry. Pasta and white rice. I always have pasta on hand and always have white rice because again, you can make a lot of things having these staples on hand. I also recommend a thing of broth. It can be chicken broth, it can be beef broth, it could be vegetable broth. Having a thing, a container or a can of broth, you know, it's not essential and you can learn how to make your own broth, but it's nice to have on hand to be able to whip something up. And I always have breadcrumbs. Yes, you can make your own breadcrumbs, but it's really nice. Sometimes you only need it to bread something. Sometimes you need it to bind something. So breadcrumbs are a really nice thing to also always have in your cabinet. So that's it. That's pretty much all the staples that I would, well, in the refrigerator, once you start to get cooking, I think you're always going to have celery on hand and carrots and a lemon. But they'll come later and you'll add them little by little. So the dad and I decided that we should call this channel the No Rules Kitchen because we don't want you to have rules. So I'm recommending you to have these things, but like, you know, if you don't like canned tomatoes and you want to chop up a fresh tomato every time in a recipe, do that. Or if you don't like canned beans, then buy dry beans and make your own. Dry beans, once they're cooked, store really great in the freezer. So there's no real rules. These are just suggestions. So let's have it.